I'm Rodney Moody, the ENGINELINK Training Manager, and our class today is focused on medical screening procedures. I'm going to go through and show you how to access it and how to update it, and we'll do a little bit of talking about it. Okay, so I'm going to be using our ENGINELINK training environment today. This is ENGINELINK Plus on the training server. You can see the address is enginelinktraining.appsplatformportals.us. So that's the training server for Plus. All right, so what's the purpose of the medical screening? Well, in all actuality, everybody that deploys to a disaster must have a medical screening on file. You either get two types of a status. You're either office cleared or you're field cleared. Of those two clearances, the field is the one that's most comprehensive. It allows you to do a variety of tasks while you're deployed. If you are with an office clearance, you're not cleared to work outside of an office environment. So for that reason, most of the employees that are on different planning and response teams, our PRTs, it is kind of across the board a requirement that everybody have a field clearance. The field clearance is a little bit more restrictive to get, and it's a little bit, if you have certain health conditions, it may be very difficult to get that clearance for some people. But for others, it's pretty standard. There's not much of a difference in the office and the field clearance questions, but we'll go through and take a look at some of those questions in just a moment. And the reason you must have a clearance is because USACE wants to know that you're medically qualified or medically fit enough to deploy to a disaster. The reason is it can be a strenuous task. You're going to be outside most of the day if you have a field clearance. You could be encountering a lot of different obstacles. There's a lot of heavy equipment moving around in most cases, and it can take a toll on your body. We have had people get injured while they were deployed. We've even had people to have physical events occur, heart attacks, strokes, and such. And the Corps of Engineers, it really seemingly, and I hate to say it, but they are concerned about your health, but really it's a kind of a CYA for the Corps of Engineers. Sorry to be blunt about that. And I encourage you to complete your medical screening accurately as best you can, because if something does happen to you, God forbid, and that you don't make it home from your clearance, from your deployment, or you don't make it home as you were when you left, some people's families may be inclined to blame the Corps of Engineers on that. They will try to sue the Corps of Engineers. And in that case, the Corps of Engineers is going to look at your medical screening. And we've had people that have just recently had different heart bypass surgeries or different major, what you would consider a major surgery, not indicate that on their screening, and they would deploy downrange, or they were not very physically fit and they would deploy downrange. And if something happens, the Corps of Engineers are going to say, well, look, this is what he or she answered on their medical screening. They didn't indicate that they had an issue, and at that point, your family has no grounds to go on. So that's ultimately what it is, but it is a good tool to make sure that everybody out there is fit enough to do the job. One underlying thing that people don't really ever consider is the amount of stress that you may encounter. Even in an office position, there can be a certain amount of stress. It's always kind of a fast-paced, high-intensity type of an environment. And you can encounter some stress levels there that are not suitable for everybody. But for the most part, I would say I enjoy it. I enjoy deploying to disasters. It is a lot of work, and you're working a lot of long days, 12 and 14-hour days, 7 days a week, for about 29 to 30 days, and that's that's typically what you can expect. And it's fulfilling because you are out there making a difference. You may be helping a community get back on its feet after a disaster or whatever the situation. I feel like you do get to make a difference, and so don't let things I tell you dissuade you from joining in and helping out. It is very beneficial. All right, so let's talk about the medical screening. It is for nearly every person on a team or in general, it is a readiness requirement. It's not an option, it is a requirement. If you are deployed downrange to an event, I say downrange, you could go up, down, east, west, whatever. But one of the first things they're going to check is your medical clearance. And if you don't have one, you're going to be parked right there at the in processing location and you can't proceed any further. And it really causes kind of an issue for the management personnel at that point because now you've got to sit down and work on getting your medical straightened out. They'll make you do a new medical screening right there on the spot, and we have to wait until it gets cleared. And I'll talk about some changes to that in just a moment. But it is vitally important that everybody have a medical screening on file. So when I log into the Plus environment, you have to go to Plus because you are going to be updating your personal information, your personal data sheet. That's why we have most people go to EngineLink Plus. Now this just happens to be the training environment for EngineLink Plus. But you will see, if you don't have a medical, you'll see this message at the top of your window on the in the Plus environment. It says, hey, you don't have a medical screening. What's up? That's the key where you can go and click. You could also go right here to your name, and there's a down caret. And if I click that, I can go to medical. Either way. But let's jump in. And you will see a screen like this. For some of you that have been around a little while, you've probably done a medical or two in the past, and it is possible that when you go to this page that you don't see this button. You may see an old previous medical screening that's listed, and for whatever reason, and we haven't quite tweaked it just yet, EngineLink is not automatically deleting those outdated or expired medicals from your record, and it will prevent you from seeing this button. Don't fret over that. It's very simple. Just give us a call at the EngineLink help desk, and we can go into your record and we can delete that medical, that previous medical, from your file. It literally takes a minute or less, if that long, and then you'll be able to you'll cycle back through here, and you'll be able to then to see this button, the Start New Medical Screening Process. For what we figured out when we were building this version of EngineLink is we have had an aging population. Sorry for some of you guys like myself that have more gray hair than any other color and a few wrinkles to show for it. That for the most part we are an aging organization, and a lot of our people have retired or moved on. But so what's happening is there's new employees coming in, young folks that are relatively healthy. Prior to this version of EngineLink, anytime you did a medical screening, it had to be submitted for a doctor to actually review it. The doctor would actually look at your answers, and based on what you input, he or she would determine your readiness, if your status of clearance that you could deploy or not deploy. Well, with these new folks coming in, we thought, well, that's kind of absurd because they're mostly healthy, and there's really no reason for us to have to send every medical screening for a review. Not to mention that it was a cost to the Corps of Engineers for every review to be sent in and reviewed by a medical doctor, an actual licensed doctor. And that doctor was making about $50 for every single review. So it was very lucrative for the doctor to do that. Now, the Corps of Engineers contracts with the doctor, so it's not like one year he's going to make $3 million and the next he's going to make $100,000. It's not that. They have negotiated a cost, and so the doctor's going to get paid regardless. What happens now, though, is when somebody goes in, and if they answer the questions using what's the anticipated healthy response, and they answer all the questions that way, well, that medical screening doesn't need a review. That's going to be a good medical screening, and upon submission, it will instantly be approved. So, where it used to take us 3 to 5 days to get a medical screening submitted and reviewed, now it can take 5 minutes if you are reasonably healthy. If you have some concerns and some health issues, and upon submission, your medical screening may be marked as needing to be reviewed. Those are the ones the doctor will go in and evaluate. And again, it doesn't take long for him or her to do that. It's just going to be a speed bump along the way. So just keep that in mind. So we're going to go ahead and click this Start Medical Screening Process button. It is literally just a screening tool. You're not going to have a physical. You're not going to have to go to a doctor's office. Nobody's going to put their hands on your body. But you will have to be faced with this choice right off the bat. Do you want an office clearance or a field clearance? That is completely up to you, perfectly up to you. If you know that you may have some health issues, or you're not inclined to go out into the field, or you don't have any desire to go out into the field and do stuff, then you would check office. If you are looking to go out into the field, you'll check field. And I don't really think there is a difference in the questions. I think it's going to come down to the doctor's review if necessary, where the doctor's going to say, well, they want a field clearance, but they've got asthma and they've got mobility issues. They're probably not qualified for the field. So you may get non-deployable if you go with that way. So just keep that in mind. Nobody's going to try to sway you one way or the other. That's your choice. I'm going to do a field clearance, and we'll click Save and Continue. All right. So you see, once you make that choice, you're like, uh-oh, I'm locked in. All right. The medical forms down at the bottom, there's just three sets of questions that you have to update. These all say in progress, in progress, in progress. So when you go here, you can start with any one of them. It doesn't matter. They're just general questions. So I'm going to start with general information. Just click that. And it's going to bring up a set of questions. Now, I'm not going to go through and read every question to you. I don't want to bore you to tears. But you will see, and I strongly encourage you, carefully read the questions. Some of them, you think you've read it, and you'll mark it as yes or no, and then it comes back and says, hey, you're not deployable. And you simply answered the question wrong. This one trips up a lot of people, I'm not sure. It says, do you have the concentration, memory, physical abilities, vision, reflexes to safely operate a motor vehicle? And I think some people are thinking, do you have concentration or memory issues? They're kind of reading more there than there actually is. And a lot of people are marking no. If you choose no, there are some questions that are instant knockout questions. And when you do that, no matter what you choose the rest of the way through your medical screening, you're going to get a non-deployable. And we have a lot of people, oh my gosh, Rodney, I messed up. I answered that question wrong. And we go in and we can delete your screening, and you can do it again. So it's not like you're stuck. We can always correct it. All right, so we're going to go through, and you have a yes, no. So are you able to bring, if you choose the alternative, so the default on this is yes. But if you choose the alternative, you get an opportunity to explain. In fact, the doctor would prefer you explain, like, do you take medications for high blood pressure? That'll be a question. If you choose yes, then you get an opportunity to put, well, I take this and that and this and that and this, and you can explain it. And it's okay to explain something. That does not mean the doctor's going to say, oh gosh, they had to put an explanation in. They've got something wrong. Sorry. So don't fret over that. Don't worry about that. If it requires an explanation, put it. If you've had a surgery, explain what happens. All right. So I'm just going to go through and mark some of these, and they're not just simple no, 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 yes, 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 yes. You do have to read them. Okay, this one's another one that can trip you up sometimes in your medical. Do you take medication that requires refrigeration? A lot of our diabetic population, they will have to take some insulin with them, and many times the insulin will require refrigeration, and that can be an issue because there may not be any electricity, or refrigeration. That's generally not a problem, but if that is the case and you say yes, that could be a problem and it could cause your medical screening to be non-deployable. I'm not saying to lie about it. I would never encourage you to lie about it, but I will say no, I don't. Do people sometimes not tell the truth? Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. And again, I'm not condoning that, not encouraging that. I will tell you this, and this is the only time I'm going to say it. Let's take a health issue you may have had for many, many years. High blood pressure is a very common one. There are a lot of people, male and female, that have high blood pressure issues. And you take medication on a regular basis. Your medication doesn't require any type of refrigeration. You have an adequate supply of medication that you need. If that's the case, would I indicate that I had a high blood pressure issue? No, I wouldn't. You got to consider you're talking, your answers are going to be possibly reviewed by a doctor that has never laid eyes on you. I would not make an issue out of something that on my day-to-day basis is not an issue for me. I hope you understand what I'm saying. I'm not telling you not to not document it. If it's something I have under complete control, then I'm definitely not going to bring it up as an issue to a doctor who may disqualify me if I want to be a deployable person. So just keep that in mind. Yep, this is another one that goes along with the medication that needs to be refrigerated. Any of these down here at the bottom, some of these like this one, that's a knockout. If you have a kidney disease not well controlled and you're undergoing dialysis, you cannot deploy. If you choose yes, that's going to be an instant knockout. And same here. So some of these, I mean, it's self-explanatory almost. All right, so I've gotten through all those questions. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. That's the process for each section of questions. Answer the questions, mark Save at the bottom. Then what you'll get a status of saved. All three of these sections need to end up getting that status. That's what you want. Save, save, save. Then you'll have a submit button. So let's go to the next section. This pertains to your medical history. Looks like most of these are no. If I haven't had any, again, you can explain. Have you had any surgeries in the past 30 days? You can explain it. And if I skip one, let me just show you what happens. If you kind of get overlooked, you get in a hurry, and you skip one. So I'll skip number 16. I'll show you what happens. It tells you, hey, wait a minute, you can't submit that. You missed one. So I got to go back. So it's kind of a fail-safe there to make sure you don't miss something. So now we got 2 out of the 3. And the last one deals with our physical capabilities. And these are mostly going to be yeses as the default answers. And I'm definitely not reading these. I know all of you are adults and you can more than likely read these yourself. If you can't, let somebody know and they'll help you. Okay. So we got all of that saved. Now basically I answered all the default answers. So I can assume that when I get down here and I click submit and finalize, that my medical will be instantly approved. And I'll show you what that looks like. Yeah, I told the truth. Okay, yep, I did. All right, there it is. That's what you're going for, is that D. You're deployable. Now it could have said office clearance, but in this case it says field clearance. So that's what you're going for, a D or a DO. Deployed office or deployable. Just the D by itself is for the field. There's not going to be a reviewer because this was a completed status. So anytime you see a medical screening and there's no reviewer included, that meant that you basically answered all the default questions as anticipated as a healthy individual, and that there was no need for a review. And you can see the date that it was done. All right. And if I go over here and look at it doesn't always immediately update. Let me just check out where it went or what's the status. This is in EngineLink Pro. And if you're on a team, then that will be one of your readiness factors on your team. So there he is. There's my medical. And go look at it. Okay. That's what I was looking for. All right. So again, use some common sense. If you know it's not an issue for you on a regular basis, you know it's under control, you know you can manage it without the assistance of other people, and you don't need any special accommodations, then don't make it an issue. You just don't know who's reviewing it, so don't make it an issue. If you feel more confident in go ahead and answering every question as it asks and answering as best you can, that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. I just don't want you to get frustrated with that. All right. Any questions, comments, or suggestions from anybody in the class today? Okay, if you don't have a medical screening, go get one today if you plan on deploying. They're good for 2 years. And one thing that we're doing right now, this is a new development requested from us by Captain Janisco at headquarters. Every 6 months, so if you've had a medical screening on file for at least 6 months, you're more than likely going to get an email that asks you to reattest the status of your medical. It's going to say, have you had any significant changes in the past 6 months? A lot of things can happen in 6 months. Car accidents, serious health changes, whatever. Now we've put that in place and we've got a bug in it that we're trying to work out. If you choose no, many times it'll give you an error. It'll throw up some kind of a crazy error and you're like, what in the world? And even though it gave you the error many times, your answer was recorded accurately. So if you get that issue, if you have that issue, you get the reattestation email, and you go through it and you choose either click yes or click no. If you choose yes, I've had some changes, it will bring you back to your medical screening. It may still give you an error. I don't remember right now, but I know if you choose no, it definitely gives you an error. Just give us a call and we'll go in and we'll look at where the change was recorded. We'll confirm it for you. All right. Well, Lisa wants to see where I went to view that. You don't have access to that, Lisa. It's under a contact, and you don't have access to it, but you can go to readiness and go over here on the individual readiness details. And we're working on a new readiness page, but you will get the medical screening information right there. And so I can see that I'm ready. It gives me all the date stuff down here. So that's available to emergency management. The way I went was like an administrative process. But again, just make sure you're in the pro contact and readiness and click the link to the individual readiness. There you go.